now here's the big exclusive of the day. Allan Border, the former Australian captain, joins me from Brisbane to talk about the big series coming up. AB, welcome to the show. Well, the Indians have been quarantining in Sydney for the last 10 days. We have seen pictures of them training in isolation. What's the buzz? From the Australian point of view, the fans and the players, it must be big. And the administrators are trying to draw in all the expats in Sydney.
I think you've got a very strong expat community here in Australia, so you get very good support always. And it'll be nothing different with everything starting in Sydney. We've been a little bit, sport starved to a certain degree, particularly live sport. We can watch a bit of sport on television, but live sport has been an issue. So if you get the opportunity to go, I think there'll be a lot of people who will get to the SCG or the different grounds that the games are being played at. So hopefully we get good crowd support. It's all about the COVID, and if there's cases that are growing in numbers, things get locked down very quickly in this country. So, look, that's the only thing I worry about, that that happens, and therefore the games are played to empty stadiums and just a television audience. That will be a real shame.
Right, there is still a lot of uncertainty around the test match in Adelaide. Though you have said in tests, Aussies have an advantage. Virat and Aaron Finch in the same dressing room. How would you say will the dynamics play out in the ODI series? Would knowing each other make the series even closer?
When you're opponents, it's amazing how you don't get to know each other's character, and you regard people differently than the guys that you actually play with. And once you start playing with people, you get to understand the nuances and the different character that's involved. And I think the fact that Australian players are now mingling more freely with Indian players and vice versa, it breaks down all sorts of barriers, doesn't it? So any sort of dramas that might have happened in the past on field, I think when you play with someone, it's a very different situation. So I think it's been a good thing. But as far as the games are concerned, I mean, Australia and India will know each other back to front, and they'll know where they're strong, weak, what they like, what can trigger something just with a few subtle chirps here and there. So it will be an interesting series from that point of view, because everyone knows each other very, very well. So as I said earlier, the advantage is to India because they've got a lot of strong 2020 cricketers. We've got a core group, but we haven't been as successful in that form as India have been.
AB, now, this is a question that I'm really keen to ask you, because a lot is being spoken about this. The reaction of Indians and Australians on the news of Virat Kohli's departure midway have been very different. While the Indians think it is more human, some of the Australians seem to think differently, some calling it a generational thing. Is that really a question on Kohli's love for the game?
I don't think that's the case. I think it's just more modern thinking. More appreciative that what you girls go through, producing babies, and gone are the days where we would go off and play our sport or do whatever we did, and didn't support our wives, through that childbirth process. It's just a different way of thinking. I mean, it'd be interesting if I was transported back in time right now, and whether I would leave the West Indies tour for the birth of my first baby that I missed. I didn't get home for about 2 weeks after my first child was born. But I don't see it how me missing the birth impacted my wife or my child at the time. It was just the way it was. Whether Virat's wife expects him to be there for the birth of number one, and so he, from our point of view, we sort of wonder why you come for one test match, or just miss the whole test series, or you come back after the baby's born, maybe for the last 2 test matches. It's one of those. It's a modern thing. I don't think we think anything less of Virat. I think there's strong support for what he's doing, particularly amongst the younger generation. I think the older generation, we're set in our ways about we don't love the game more or less than Virat. I mean, no one loves the game more than Virat. I mean, he's passionate, but
Right.
he's also married and he wants to see the birth of his first child. I get it.
Interesting that, you call it a modern thinking, and, these days the game is also played a little differently. But talking about the contest, last time India won the series down under, there was no Smith, no Warner. I'm talking about the Test series. Are the Aussies over-dependent on Smith, Warner and Labuschagne, who you will have in your team this time around?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a tremendous bonus for the Aussies to have those two players back. I mean, you just look what they bring to the table as far as their Test careers. Smith in particular, Warner at the top of the order. He's had his moments, but in Australia in particular, he's a very dangerous player, as is Steve Smith. So I think them coming back into the side just lifts the Australian chances compared to last time we played each other here. We've got some good young players. I really hope our selectors bite the bullet and pick a young fella called Pukovski. He's a serious talent. What he's done in first-class cricket at the moment has been phenomenal. So, I just hope they play him, because we don't know what we've got with this kid. I mean, I think there's something special about him, but we don't know, and we won't know unless they pick him. So he's one to watch out for. And a young kid called Cameron Green is another good young kid that has been doing great things in our first-class system, but you don't know until you get thrown into the big show. So that's what we've got to wait and see. But, yeah, watch out for those two. We won't rely totally on Smith and Warner. Labuschagne, he's been creating all sorts of problems for bowling attacks. So, yeah, watch this space. We've got some good young players coming through the ranks.
Thank you very much, AB, for joining me on the show.